Remember how you loved the stories at bedtime about princesses and fairy godmothers? Well, you may want to hold on tighter to your teddy bear and keep that nightlight on, because these are not your mother's bedtime stories.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Not Your Mother's Bedtime Story. This is Sherry. We have the usual suspects with us tonight. Yeah, anyone? I swear I'm not by myself.
Colleen's here.
Chrissy's here.
We're all taking a nap. Karen the mom, but I woke up from my nap.
Colleen's muted.
No, I did say hi already. I said hi, but I think Chrissy and I said hi at the same time. So I just mute I just mute in case like my heavy breathing gets picked up by the microphone and it gets distracting.
It's a common problem for Colleen, or heavy breathing. Oh well, we're all back. We're
that and cricket.
We're on a roll tonight. We'll get through it.
We're back.
I know.
We're a little rusty. Yeah, we're a little rusty.
I don't know. We had a friend miss last night, I guess you'd call it. It was a Christmas party, and it was fun. So I don't know if anybody has seen the TikTok about the little red truck hauling a Christmas tree. So it's like a thing that it's trending out there. Well, as we were all laughing, we realized that my friend Emily has all of these little red trucks hauling Christmas trees. So we made a TikTok of it last night, and it was like getting all these views. It was pretty funny, but we were going around her house and filming all of her little red trucks hauling Christmas trees. So it was pretty funny.
Oh, I have an update too. Here's a past story. So I think it was episode 2 of this season. I got to meet Carrie in person at my husband's office Christmas party last night. And he had a little tidbit that he wished that he could have shared. So if you remember, his story was about Blake Island and the candles that would light up after they had extinguished them for the night. The crew would actually sit around and wait and watch as the candles would light up again. And he said one little tidbit that he forgot to share was that they actually, to try to debunk the candles getting lit up, bought brand new candles in that had never been lit and set those out on the tables, and they also lit up. So that was a neat little piece of information that he wanted to share with us. So just adds to the creepiness of that story. So it was nice to actually meet Carrie in person. He's a neat, but otherwise, good. Yeah. Well, we'll just waste no time since we're all in such a chatty mood tonight. We'll get going and introduce our guests. So I have another one of my coworkers here. You've heard a couple of my coworkers on the past come in, but this started when Judy and I were at a leadership training, I think like this past maybe spring, like in May, and we were seated at the same table. And I think the best part of leadership training is the fact that you just get to chat with other leaders that we don't typically get to hang out with. And we were all chatting, and I think I brought up my podcast and talked about ghosts, and Judy's like, well, I lived in a haunted house before. And I'm like, ooh. And so instantly I get excited about those stories, and I wanted to hear a little bit more. And she told me a little bit, but I didn't get to hear the bulk of these stories. And we're kind of taking off on our theme of haunted college houses. So Kathleen had just talked about her haunted house that she lived in college. And so it's definitely not a unique thing, but really interesting. So yeah, with no further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Judy, and let you tell your story.
Hi guys. Thank you for having me. I was in college 2001, many years ago. We were living in Spokane, so it was me and 4 other roommates. We had an old house out in Spokane, beautiful home, huge, 2 stories and then a basement in the house. There's a 3-bedroom house. I think within the first couple of weeks, one of my roommates started noticing something. So both of them Both of the girls had their boyfriends move in with them. And so she was right across the hall from where I slept. I think within her first couple of weeks of just moving in, she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear crying. She said she'd wake up her boyfriend. He never heard anything. She'd ask me the next day, "Hey, Judy, did you hear anything?" Like I've never, and even to this day, like that's not something I ever noticed in the house. But it happened to her, I guess first and foremost right away. What started happening to me, like I said, it was a big house in Spokane. So we'd all go to college together in the morning. And because, just not having to yell throughout the house, my roommate downstairs had an intercom system. So she'd wake me up in the middle of the night, or she'd tell me, "Hey, you ready to go? Let's get ready and be ready in 15 minutes." And I'd reply to her, using the intercom too. What I started noticing is in the middle of the night, like I'd hear static, like, it would go off in the middle of the night. You just hear the shh. And I know they made one of those movies, the white noise. To this day, I haven't watched it because I didn't want to know what that was all about. But, I thought, being an old house, maybe it's just, the outlet, something's wrong, the wiring. So I plug it into some other part of the room. And still, in the middle of the night, I just hear that static noise. It would wake me up. Shh. We tested it out a couple times during the day. I'm like, is it, something wrong? Is she maybe hitting the button at night while she's sleeping? Because she had it right next to her bedstand. And nothing would ever make that noise no matter what we tried out. So it ended up, I ended up unplugging it because it just kind of would bother me and it was constant, happening. Another thing that would happen, I think, in the room also, I had one of those touch lamps that, right by the bedstand. It'd go off in the middle of the night too, just turn on and, super bright. And I thought the same thing, just maybe, I'm touching it, the bed sheets are hitting it, I'm rolling over, something fell on it. No, like you'd have to physically touch it, is what we found out, for it to set off, turn on and off. It was, I did the same thing. I plugged it in on the other side of the bed. It kept happening too. That one just didn't seem to bother me. But from all the stories, that started happening, from us and the roommates, we're all Catholic. So came home, got the holy water, went to church, just kind of blessed the house just from the prayers that we were told to do. And it seemed to calm down. Like we didn't, really get anything. But nothing crazy happened other than what we started noticing if we were in the house alone, which all happened, every now and then because, we'd all work or be at school. You could be studying downstairs and you'd hear like the house, like someone's walking upstairs, and we knew no one else was in the house. None of us ever went to go explore. We knew something was off already, so we just would kind of leave it alone. Same thing, if you're upstairs, you can hear someone walking downstairs. And it wasn't like, we've all lived in older homes, it's creaking, it settles. This is actually like physically walking. You can hear someone walking, into the kitchen, walking up and down the hallway upstairs. But again, none of us ever investigated that part of it. We kind of felt like it didn't like a male presence in the house. When my husband first started coming over, he lived in Seattle, so he'd come over and visit me. I worked retail, so I'd get up early in the morning to set the ads like at Buntemeyer, and he'd stay, there in the bed in the room. And it's old house again, no insulation, so in the wintertime it was cold, and in the summertime it was hot. Well, we didn't have air conditioning or anything in the house. One summer morning, he felt like the room started getting cold. He's waking up and he couldn't move. He said he could swear there was someone standing right next to him on the bed and like holding him down type of thing. And he just kept trying to struggle, trying to move, and he couldn't do it. Finally, he broke free. And he said, he stood up, looked around, the temperature went back to kind of normal, but he didn't see anything. He started, he did look around the house, upstairs. He just, it weirded him out. And that happened to him twice. One time I remember, like for myself, again, setting that up early in the morning. You wake up early, it's time to get up before the alarm clock, wakes you up. I was just lying in bed, hadn't like opened my eyes or anything, and I felt something at the foot of my bed, like just tugging at my sheets, at my feet, kind of like wake up. And just like I said, so many things had happened that we had talked about it. We kind of tried to find out more about what was going on. They said, someone had told us once, or maybe one of us heard it in a movie, like if you tell it to go away, it'll go away. And that was one thing I was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Like, you gotta go. Like, it tugged a little bit and then it was gone. Then, the rest went about my business the rest of the day. Got up and, just went to work. Another thing that happened, like my roommate downstairs on the first floor, she swear that, we were just, trying to mess with her. Nothing ever happened in the house. One day after, college kids had a party, we're cleaning up afterwards. We had those colored plastic cups. We had two of them, I remember, in the living room still. But we had been cleaning up the kitchen, took out the garbage, and we both, were like, oh, we'll come back and pick up those that we left in the living room. We come back in the kitchen. This is middle of the day. There's nobody else in the house. And one of the red cups from the living room was on the kitchen counter, which nothing had been on the kitchen counter. And my roommate, that totally weirded her out. She's like, Judy, you did it. I was like, how did I do it? I walked outside with you, I was like, don't worry. It's just a little boy. He's just playing. He doesn't mean you any harm. And she was just creeped out by that. But we, just from our experiences, we just felt different presence.
So Judy, sorry to interrupt, but like, so you think the little boy, but then you also think maybe a woman? Do you guys have like any sense of what kind of spirit it might have been?
We felt like it was like the woman was the one that would walk around trying to so we felt like there was a bad entity. We felt there was a male bad entity in the house. The woman, I felt like that was who was, at the foot of my bed, trying to get my attention. The little boy, we just felt like he was the one like turning things on and off, like playing. I recall having a pretty vivid dream about him one night. The house, you're having a dream and your dreams are, you're in your room, but it's not really your room. Things are different. This was exact setup. My room was the exact same way. The house was the exact same way. The door had opened and, he threw a red ball at me trying to play, not speaking. And I kind of grabbed it and I threw it back at him. We played like that for a little while. Then he, it fell down the stairs. So I followed him down the stairs to the living room, through the kitchen, and down by the kitchen and the back door. That's how you kind of get into the basement. So, the ball kind of fell towards me. I reached down to pick it up, and as I turned around, he was no longer in front of me. He was in the basement and the door was open, but behind him was black and like his eyes were red and evil. And that kind of happened, within a couple months. And after that, like I never went into the basement. There was nothing I stored in the basement. There was nothing I went to go get in the basement. I didn't go to the basement unless I absolutely had to, and always with, one of the roommates.
Ugh. Yeah, that story just totally took a left turn when.
So you said the first roommate that you mentioned, she would hear somebody crying. What, like, was she able to identify? Was it a small child crying, or was it a woman crying? Like, was she able to?
She felt like it was a child crying. Yeah. She felt like it was a little kid crying. She couldn't tell if it was a boy or girl, but she felt like it was a little kid crying. And that's where, from just all the stories we could put together, there was, we felt that the male entity was a man and he was just evil. And I think from what we could tell, like that's the one that didn't like men in the house.
Okay. So, I mean, when you said when your husband had the encounter a couple of times, like, did he have a sense of, was it trying to do him harm? Like, was that like, do you think that was maybe the male entity that was going after him?
I think that's what he felt like.
Okay.
He felt like it was a male entity, and just kind of like trying to get him to leave. Like, you don't belong here. You need to leave. And that's the kind of feeling that he always grasped from it.
And so in the basement, so you talked about, in your, like, before your dream, was there ever any feelings in the basement? Did you not want to go? I mean, basements, we all know, are creepy in general, but I mean, did you ever feel that it was a place where maybe, something
Yes.
bad was watching you, or something, malevolent lived down there?
So that was a creepy thing about the basement. So it was an unfinished basement. All anybody used it was for storage. So in the back of the basement, towards the front of the house, there was a mound, so covered in cement. So it wasn't like, just a straight, flat, square rectangle wall, smoothed out or anything. Everything was cemented, but downstairs in that basement in the back, towards the front of the house, there was this mound of cement. Unfinished, not smooth. It looks like it was just kind of thrown there. And we never talked to the landlady about it, just because we didn't want to creep her out, or I guess we really didn't want to know what the answer to that might have been. It couldn't have been like, even asking any of the guys. We didn't know much about foundations. We didn't know if, something could have broken down there and someone was just trying to cover it up. But just the way it looked really fishy. Like, it was it looked like a huge dirt mound, just then covered in cement. So we just felt that was super odd. Why would anybody, use that space that way? So definitely creepy.
Judy, did you ever hear any stories from either past tenants or know any kind of history of the house, like who might have lived there before?
No, it was an older lady that lived in that house, and then she moved out, and they we got it through an agency, is who we rented the house through. So we tried to research just what we could online. We never saw anything just from the address. We Googled, we've tried to see, if anybody went missing from that house. Nothing other than, somebody that lived there, her husband passed away in the army. But it looks like, he didn't pass away there at the house. He passed away. But other than that, no missing persons that we could find out, nothing like that. So it was super weird. And we have driven by the house, and we have been pretty curious, both me and my husband, like, we should knock on the door and see, if the people who live there have ever experienced something like that. But I mean, how weird is that for someone, a stranger coming knocking on your door and just, hey, we used to live here, is this house haunted? Have you guys ever experienced anything? So
is it a house that's typically rented by students, or could it just be anybody that rents it?
Anybody. It was a pretty big house. It wasn't close to campus or anything. It wasn't broken up into apartments. It was a 3-bedroom house. Beautiful. Definitely family living.
How long did you live there, Judy?
2 years.
And this happened the whole time? You had, like, things keep happening? Oh, wow.
Things kept happening. Like I said, it kind of calmed down after we, got the house blessed. And as people moved in and moved out, because we did have one of our college roommates, the one that had that experience with the baby crying, or, the crying in the middle of the night. She moved out right away. We had another, coworker that, moved in. She never said anything about experience anything. Like I said, it's just not until, like, my boyfriend moved in, my husband now. But when he moved in, that's when things started getting a little bit weirder, and we moved shortly after that.
Yeah, I would think getting held down and like having a presence like suffocating you would probably be the time when you're like, yeah, it's time to move on. Somebody doesn't want me here. Ugh, that's creepy.
Yeah, he just, from the stories that he told me, I was like,
Right,
it's
physical.
starting to get worse. So we should.
It's interesting because we've had other guests that have spoke. We've had baby monitors, not intercoms, but baby monitors that were messed with. It's interesting, and also dreams, like people getting their dreams infiltrated with whatever presence is there that they feel like was it real or was it a dream? So definitely like things that we have heard and talking to past guests.
Well, and it's, I wonder too, and I froze for a second, so I think I missed some things. So I apologize if I'm saying things over again. But so it seems like you had maybe more encounters with the little boy, with the child, and it seems like your husband had encounters with the male entity, and then you also mentioned that there was a woman. Like, did it seem like they were attracted to certain people, or like was there any kind of source of commonality between, like, okay, the little boy is attracted to the women, the male entity is attracted to the men, like the woman, she just walks around the kitchen, or I mean, was there anything that you can think of that was maybe similar, or maybe there was a target for those of you in the house that had your boyfriends there, or things like was there anything like that?
I think so. I think, like I said, I don't think that it liked male. The male entity did not like males in the house, and I think that was more what angered him. The little boy, yeah, just kind of playing, little tricks, and that was all to the girls. Definitely closer to all of the girls. We had one of the roommates' boyfriends moved out kind of shortly after, but he never, like, we trying to get something out of him, and he never would tell us anything. But one thing, he would not go into the basement by himself. Yeah, so he never would admit to anything.
Those dang basements. Why are they always so creepy? Like, there's just always, we just have a theme too. That's always the theme, is like the basement. Oh, the basement. Like almost worse than the attic. I don't know. It's those basements. And like you said, like the mound.
Well, those creaky wooden stairs never finished.
And the mound in the basement. Like, what's with the mound?
Yes. That's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing I'm like, okay, anybody who would, even going to buy a house, and I know it's been sold, I think, like twice, when they go and appraise it, how do they not check those types of things or question it? How is that, just getting passed
right
by? So that's just something that's always weirded me out.
Put some extra holy water on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be dug into, right? Yes.
Like literally dug into, like, what's in the mound.
Yeah.
Did you have any pets or anything, any animals in the house while you were living there?
Yes, we did have a Chihuahua in the house, but that was one of my roommate's dogs. Never seemed to be, I mean, she would always bark at something, if anybody would come to the front door, she was definitely a barker, but never in the middle of the night, nothing that my roommate ever
Did she go in the basement
with her.
The dog?
No, she never went into the basement.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Well, she was too little, I think, too. The wooden stairs. We made sure that we never left that basement door open for her, and we always made sure that basement door was closed anyway.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know, like, what the history. I mean, it just seems like with these types of stories, like, there's got to be some kind of background. And I mean, we've heard multiple stories before where it seems like, it's not just one entity, and there maybe is kind of a little bit of a power struggle or power play across them. So it's, the little boy, is more playful, and then, the male entity is more, the stronghold and things like that. But it's like, you wonder, what's the connection? Like, is there a connection to those three, or is it just untimely that's where, they passed, or they were drawn to this house for some particular reason, or they're underneath the dirt mound? I don't know. I mean, it could be any one of those things, but what brings them, together and keeping them there. And if, the blessing of the house helped to diminish the activity a little bit, at least, I wonder if going forward, like you said, the house has changed hands, or if, there's any kind of renovations or things that have happened. It would be interesting to know if there's still activity going on there.
How old was the house?
1970,
Wow.
sorry.
Wow, that's
1870.
older.
Wow. So that's old for Spokane. Yeah. See, I get a little creeped out though still. I know I froze when I was talking about your dream. Like the fact that the little boy was so like friendly until his eyes turned red in the basement. Like that makes me almost think, we hear about stories where spirits will like manifest as different things to make you feel a little bit more comfortable and then kind of lure you into. So that drew the goosebumps on my arm when his eyes turned red. Like he's not what you think he is.
I just have the feeling that he passed away in the basement. Like something bad happened to him in that basement, and that's another reason, like, why I always question that mound, and then why I always question or I would just never go to the basement for anything. I remember one of my roommates, and we had friends over for Halloween. They're like, "Let's go hang out at the basement." Nope, no, thank you. You guys can do whatever you want. I'm not
That's so
messing
bizarre.
with that.
I mean, that's why when I asked if you had pets, I was wondering if, like if, they had a dog and it was digging in that mound, like, was it, like, would it be like attracted to it, or would it pulls out a femur?
Comes up with it, right?
Yeah, but it was like the mound was just cemented in. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing. It was, covered with cement. So there's no way, it seemed pretty thick for, it was almost to the ceiling and almost, wall to wall. Huge mound.
Could be a few bodies in there.
Yeah, it was creepy. And that's why I figured, we thought maybe, the boy and the mom might have been related somehow, mother and son, and might have, but we couldn't figure out how the male entity was still there, if he was the one that hurt them, how was he still there?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been like I said, it could have been a family, it could have been a murder-suicide situation.
That's what I was thinking, that he killed the boy and the mother and then himself, but he wouldn't be able to bury himself underneath there. So,
or he was very protective. Like he was very protective of every jealous kind of person.
Overbearing.
That's why the males were threatening to him, and then maybe he was controlling her. And
I was just gonna say, or like I said, it's a flip. Like, maybe there really wasn't a child. Maybe it's all one entity, but it transitions into something that you would be attracted to. Like if it's a little boy, why wouldn't I, throw the little red ball to the little boy? And, like lures you into that false sense. And if it's all women living in there, it's like, well, what better way than to, think that it's a child? And then, when it comes to the men, because correct me if I'm wrong, none of the men actually saw anything or had any visions or anything like that. So they could have just been one entity that was just playing itself differently depending on who it was revealing itself to.
That just freaks me out. That makes sense though. It is really true because because we really felt it was innocent when we felt like it was the woman or the little boy. We're like, oh, he's just playing. It's okay. It's not a big deal. We started getting comfortable in those situations. That makes sense. That's weird.
Well, here's the question, Judy, that we've asked other guests before. Like, now that you've felt like you've had experiences, do you sense more experiences now? Like, can you walk into something or a house or a situation and be like, ooh, there's something here? Like, are you more sensitive now that you've lived?
I think so. I haven't felt anything. I mean, you always have that, sixth sense of when something's bad, or maybe a person has bad intentions. That's, I don't know if it's maybe that situation or that, as I've gotten older, I'm just more observant of certain things, but nothing that I've ever walked into where I can say there's something evil here. And nothing recently other than, we've talked about Christina at work, certain things that have happened, and I won't go exploring, after hours or at night by myself anywhere, even though I work in the basement. But there is, I felt something at work more than anything, but nothing
Yeah, well, we've talked about our clinic before with other guests that, you know, it's definitely haunted. I think I've brought up some stories before, but the one that I hadn't heard about, and it seems like we said too, that it seems like the activity is more on the lower level where Judy works now. I used to work in the same space that Judy works in now, and the old lady. I hadn't heard of the old lady before, but we've had multiple. We had a coworker who was just talking on Thursday how she saw there's like a camera in the break room where if there's like a self-serve pantry, and so the camera is there just to make sure that people are paying for their things. And she looked up and saw an old woman in the camera behind her, just, short little curly gray hair, glasses. And she turned around quickly because she knew it was an employee. And so she was going to try to help this old lady who had wandered into the area. And then there was no one there. Oh. Like, I don't want to, I'm not using that self-service pantry anymore. Like, that's scary. But even our past facilities, people, maintenance workers too, there's been a couple of them that have seen an old lady in the downstairs area, which is not for patients at all. Patients aren't supposed to be down there. So they go to try to help this old lady, and then she's not there anymore. So that was a new creepy work story that I hadn't heard before. I'm like, great, there's something else
the history
to be
of your
worried
building
about at
where
work.
you work, though, it's just office building all the time, or do you...
No, it was so it was an old eye and ear clinic, and there actually was like a morgue. There was supposed to be like an area where there was a morgue down where our facilities people are now. So it's an old building. I don't know what year it was built, apparently. So yeah, it was either like a hospital, I think, at one point. But yeah, it's an old building, and it's been remodeled now. It's all been modernized, and that's what people were saying too, that they feel like the energy or the experiences have calmed down after it's been modernized. But I mean, Maria just saw that, I think, within the past few months, where she saw the old lady in the camera. So still somebody's hanging around. That remains to be seen. I didn't ask her about that, or if she flipped out too much and said, nope. If there's ghosts in the camera, it's free. Yeah.
I know one time me and one of the coworkers that used to work with me, not actually worked in the pharmacy before she came down with us. We were downstairs unpacking, and normally when someone comes in, we hear the door open before we hear anybody.
It was getting good. It's like, maybe it's that entity from Judy's old house is kind of messing with her.
Someone's not happy.
Yeah.
I too.
So I went in. We were working in the basement, me and a coworker, and normally in the purchasing area, you can hear the door open before you hear someone talking. So that always gives us a signal someone's coming in. We're sitting here, tearing away, cutting at the cardboard, and both of us hear a male's voice say, hello. And we both, both of us automatically were like, hi, hey, how's it going? Walk over around the door to see who came in, and there was nobody there. And both of us were like, well, you heard that, right? And then so we both walk out into the hallway and there's a stairwell, and then there's a main hallway down the hall too. So we wanted to make sure, someone, there wasn't anybody that we might have, just missed. And no, there was nobody there. And normally you couldn't hear it that clearly with the door closed if someone were to have been in the hallway. And it happened to her a second time too. I was in the back of the purchasing department, so I didn't hear it. But she was like, Judy, did you hear that? I was like, no, I didn't hear anything. She goes, it happened again. And it was the same voice, like a male's voice, very friendly. Hello. And we both are like, oh, let's go greet them. What do they need? And nobody was there. Yeah, it was, but that's the only thing that's happened to me that I can recall in the basement. But that's all I need. I'm good. I don't need any more than that, especially because we come in really early in the morning too. So
yeah, that's always what's creepy, because I'll sometimes come in early too, and it's dark outside now, and so you come in, and yeah, I swear I heard somebody one morning, and then of course you turn around and it is facilities, and I'm like, oh, you can't do that to me. I'm like, why are you in here so early? So I'm definitely like more of a chicken when there's nobody else around.
Oh, me too. I'll put on my headphones and hear music.
So, Judy, this is something that we've heard quite a bit from other guests as well. So I guess it's a two-part question. Before you lived in your house that you had all the experiences in, had you had any experiences before that? That's my first question. And then my second question is, since you've had your experiences, do you feel like you're more aware of things or more sensitive, or maybe you get feelings? Maybe if you walk into a place.
We asked that question when you were out. So she only has to answer the first one.
Okay.
She only has to answer the first question.
I'll answer the first question. Before that, I don't think so. I don't think I'd ever experienced about it. I know just, hearing stories from the family, back in Mexico, my family's from Mexico. So my dad's always told us stories down, in the fields and the ranch, just what, would happen or what they've experienced. Definitely my mom is very superstitious. So all sorts of kind of, always, say your prayers, blessings, definitely holy water. And that was one thing that, she told us, because even when my dad, dropped us off at college, he's like, this is an old house. Someone's died here. So if anything, he's one that's kind of always been aware of those types of things and is very vocal about it. I'm like, thanks, Dad. That really puts us at ease. But he's like, no, you should probably get the house blessed. There's something here. Someone's died here. It's just an old home. That's, pretty normal.
So see, that's
did you tell him about the experiences then that you had? No?
This is before anything had happened.
Yeah, but it
This
seemed
is
like
right
he
when we had moved in.
Knew. Yeah.
He just assumed, he's like, this is an old house, someone's probably died here.
Right.
It was just, and he just nonchalant, like, normal everyday conversation.
But the fact that he said you should probably get the house blessed, like,
yeah, well, that's just something
Dad knew.
Good recommendations. I was like, thanks, Dad.
Old house doesn't mean somebody died. There must have been some red flags there.
Dad felt something. Yeah, I bet he felt something. Like you said too, he's had stories. I bet your dad is sensitive. He probably didn't want to. He didn't want to scare you, but he just wanted to make that point.
College.
No.
Yeah.
Now, girls. Somebody's died here. See you later.
It would probably be more like, like Sherry's old. Probably got mice.
Yeah, that was last episode. It was all the critters that were in Sherry's house that she
infested, just not with spirits.
Oh, they're still evil.
Do you have a college story, a separate college story before we close? And he was telling us, he's like, Mom, I think our apartment has rats. And I'm like, what? Rats? Like, how can you have rats? And then he's like describing it, and I'm like, okay, that's a mouse. And he's like, I think I saw a mouse run. And so he has this is 5, like 19, 20-year-olds living in a house, or 6, 19 or 20-year-olds living in a house. And so now they think they have a rodent problem in their house. I'm like, this ought to be interesting for them diagnosing this problem. So they've like set glue traps all over their house with peanut butter and mice trying to catch this phantom mouse that they think that they have coming in. But their running joke is they have a roommate who loves peanut butter sandwiches, and like one day they think that they're gonna come in, and he's like gonna be stuck to all the glue traps trying to get at the peanut butter on the glue traps, but they haven't caught anything. So I even doubt the validity that there is any mice in this apartment. But yes, college living, you never know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy's.
This is true.
Chrissy's frozen.
Chrissy's frozen. She's deep in thought.
No, you guys were all frozen. Yeah, this has been the worst technical difficulties we've ever had. I don't know what's going on today.
I think so. Remember, I was telling you all the white noise, through the electronics. maybe there's something messing with us.
Our podcast is truly haunted now. Darn it. We're like 22 episodes in, and this was the one that tipped us over the edge.
So that's enough. You've reached your quota.
No. Yeah, you can't talk about it anymore. Ugh. Cool. Well, thanks, Judy. This was a good way. And I know you said you're like, oh, it's not that big, but I think it really is. And who knows, again, with like what was in that basement and really truly what was going on there. But yeah, I would be curious someday too. You have to tell me the address of the house, and when we're in Spokane, if I'm brave enough to, I'll knock on the door and just be some random and say like, hey.
Well, and not even that. You can look it up. I mean, just look at public records in terms of who's all lived there, and there you might be able to find something from that.
I would totally give it to you. Go for it, Christine. So check out that basement. Let me know what you see.
Say you're an inspector. You gotta check out.
I was gonna say I'll make Greg do it. Greg's got no fear. I know. Well, that was one thing too. So during our break, we actually were fortunate enough to go to Hawaii, and we were having like the most wonderful dinner. That there was a table next to us that had come in a little bit after us, and I'm eavesdropping, not intentionally, but the woman was a little loud. There was 4 people, 2 women and 2 men, and one of the women was talking about how she was taking all these pictures, and she saw these orbs in the camera and the pictures that she was taking, and that may or may not be signs of some sort of paranormal activity, but then her male companion was talking about having things written in the mirror and the steam coming out of his shower, and all of a sudden I'm really heightened and I'm listening. I'm like, ooh, they're telling ghost stories over there, Greg. Should I say something to them? And then we were leaving and they got their meal served, and I'm like, I don't want to interrupt their meal now. If their food hadn't come, I might have wanted to hear more of their story. But of course, Greg, who has no fear at all of anybody, is like, let's go talk to him. Let's go talk to him. So, but I didn't. So
what were the messages in the mirror?
I don't know. I couldn't hear it. And so again, I'm leaving our dinner conversation and leaning my chair, back pretty soon. It like falls over. I'm trying to lean my chair back to figure it out.
Quiet. I'm trying to hear what they're saying.
trying to hear what they're saying. No, I was like pausing our conversation for a second. I'm like, hang on a second. I'm listening to these other people's conversation, but no, I didn't. But Greg, again, who has no fear, would have.
So is there like a known like haunted hotel around where you were staying, or like where were they staying?
I don't think so. This might have even been like, something that happened to them, in a different area, and they were just sharing stories. But yeah, I didn't get that part of their conversation.
Maybe they recognize
potential
you.
Podcast guest missed.
Chrissy from Not Your Mother's Bedtime If we talk really loud here, maybe she'll get us. Maybe she'll maybe she'll ask us to be a featured guest on our show.
We're so popular.
Because we're so podcast famous.
That was it, Colleen. I think you're absolutely right. Nailed it.
Well, thanks, Judy. Thanks for coming on. And thank you all to all of our listeners who are listening. It does help to follow us, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend. We're growing little by little. So, all right. Well, I think it's time for you to take it away, Mom.
Thank you for listening, and remember to keep that night light on. Good night, sweet dreams.
If you have a story to share, please send it to notyourmothersbedtimestory@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Not Your Mother's Bedtime Story. And please help us grow by following us on your favorite podcast platform, leaving us a positive review, and telling a friend. Thank you for your support.